Hi, this is Randall Schwartz, host of FLOSS Weekly. This week, Aaron Newcomb joins me. We're going to be talking about Crowd Supply, an organization that can take your product from concept to delivery with crowdfunding as part of the sourcing. You're not going to want to miss this, so stay tuned.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for FLOSS Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
This is FLOSS Weekly with Randall Schwartz and Aaron Newcomb. Episode 356, recorded September 30th, 2015. Crowd Supply. This episode is brought to you by PagerDuty. PagerDuty decreases alerting noise for IT operations and developers to ensure that the right engineers are notified at the right time. Increase your uptime and sign up for a 14-day free trial at pagerduty.com/twit. And by DigitalOcean, simple and fast cloud hosting built for developers. Deploy an SSD cloud server in 55 seconds. Try it today for free. Visit DigitalOcean.com, and once you sign up, be sure to enter the promo code FLOSS in the billing section for a $10 credit. It's time for FLOSS Weekly, the show about free, libre, open source software. I am your host, Randall Schwartz, Merlin at StoneNinja.com, bringing you each week the movers, the shakers, the big projects, the little projects you may be using every day, not aware of it. That's kind of fun when you can see those. Projects you might want to immediately go do some more research on right after the show. Not if you're driving, though. Wait till you get home. Okay, so I'm coming to you from beautiful downtown Santa Monica once again. We get a few clouds this time back in the window behind me. I forgot something very important. Let's go ahead and bring on our co-host, Aaron Newcomb. Aaron, welcome back to the show.
Morning, Randall. How's it going?
It's going pretty well. I didn't get very good sleep last night, but I think I can run on fumes for the rest of the day, so that's all that really matters. But anyway, and where are you speaking to us from? Doesn't look like you're at the brick house anymore.
No, it's too early for that. I'm in my study, my lovely study filled with all sorts of cool stuff. And in fact, I know we're going to get to our topic in a minute, but I have something I bought off of Kickstarter and arrived yesterday, so we'll have to talk about that a little bit too.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and talk about what we have on today. We have Josh Lifton is going to be representing Crowd Supply, which I guess the quick 30-second pitch for it would be like open software meets open hardware meets Kickstarter, and something that's sort of derived from that. He's probably cringing now because of the quick description, but is this your take on it? I know you're a big open hardware guy.
Yeah, that is my take on it. And so I was kind of excited to see that we're going to be talking about it today. I've never actually used it, but I think it's a great idea. You got your Kickstarter out there, your Indiegogo and things like that. It'd be nice to have something just for open hardware and open software. So I'm kind of hoping that's what this is. And I'm interested to see what the differences are, and what actually, why would I use this? I mean, Kickstarter seems to be doing pretty good. As I mentioned, I got the Onion Omega, they call it. It's a little Linux board, kind of like a Raspberry Pi. I got that yesterday from Kickstarter. I get a lot of things off of Kickstarter, just tons of stuff. So I got a 3D scanner in the mail yesterday. I'm putting that together. I really, really love Kickstarter and the way it works. So I'm really curious to see how this would change things, how it would be different than what I do today.
Yeah, definitely cool. And I'm just thinking, as you started rattling off all those things, it's like I'm a nomad now. I have basically one spare bedroom that's mine, and whatever's in a 10 by 16 storage shed. So, and whatever's in the back seat of my car. I guess that also counts as my space too. But I don't get to have all those nice toys anymore. So it's great to hear that. But that just means you're going to rent a room at some point, and you're going to have the storage area soon. Are you getting close to that yet?
Well, if I pan the camera around, I won't do that because I'll keep everyone from throwing up. But if I panned the camera around, you would see all this junk, piled up on my desk. This is where I do my soldering, my electronics work, all the computer work that I do. It's all right here, and so it's all kind of piled up. These little gizmos here and there. So, yeah, definitely, I could use. Probably my wife would agree with that. We should get a storage shed at some point.
Well, we'll be bringing on our guest in a moment, but before we do that, I have a very important announcement. PagerDuty is an operations performance platform that delivers visibility and actionable intelligence to help increase the uptime of your apps, servers, websites, and databases. If you rely on your software and services to always be up, PagerDuty is an essential tool. As the hub of your operations, PagerDuty connects all of your systems into a single view where you can see critical events across all of your monitoring tools. There are over 100 ready-to-use integrations, including Nagios, New Relic, Keynote, AppDynamics, or you can roll your own with PagerDuty APIs. You can decrease your resolution time. When an incident occurs, PagerDuty notifies the right team and member based on on-call schedules and personalized alerting preferences. You can dispatch alerts by automated phone calls, SMS, email, and push notifications, and resolve incidents on the go so you can live your life even when you're on call. PagerDuty is relentless when it comes to reliability, fully distributed across multiple data centers and multiple hosting providers. There are also multiple contact method providers per method, so you'll never miss an alert. And you can customize it to fit how you and your team work regardless of location or size. PagerDuty is trusted by thousands of companies, including Microsoft, GitHub, Boeing, Nike, Pinterest, and Box. And I'll also add that my 2 clients are also using PagerDuty, so I'm very familiar with the product and very happy with it. So get the right engineer on the right problems at the right time. Visit pagerduty.com/twit to sign up for a free 14-day trial. And for as little as $19 a month, you can increase your uptime with PagerDuty. And when you sign up for a new account, you'll also get a free t-shirt. That's pagerduty.com/twit. And we thank PagerDuty for their support of Floss Weekly. And let's go ahead and bring on our guest. Josh Lipton, welcome to the show.
Hey, good to be here.
Great. And where are you speaking to us from?
Portland, Oregon.
Yay, my home. You know, if we'd done this show next week, I could have interviewed you in person.
I was wondering if you were going to be in town. I thought you were, actually. But
yeah, I am. I'll be back. I'll be up there all of next week, actually, before I got fun. Cool. So the show here will be actually done from my apartment out in Beaverton. So that's cool. Yeah. So I gave sort of my elevator pitch for Crowd Supply. Why don't you go ahead and tell us what it really is?
Sure. So Crowd Supply is a collaborative commerce platform that focuses on open hardware and on kind of crafted artisanal goods. And I think those two things have a lot in common. We're in Portland, of course, so we have to do something artisanal. But really, our primary focus is open hardware and getting that out to people. So the centerpiece of that is the crowdfunding portion, and we complement that with a bunch of different a la carte services like fulfillment and marketing and sales, and we're a store fundamentally as well. So you can go online and go buy all the stuff that we funded or helped fund.
Yeah, I noticed quite a few interesting things there, including an entire high-performance laptop. How did these projects come about, and what's sort of the typical workflow for this?
Yeah, we've actually just funded our third laptop, and this was the third laptop was the second by a company called Purism. It's the Librem 13 as opposed to the 15. And then our first laptop was the Novena laptop by Bunny Huang and Sean Cross. And each of these projects is really different. They come about in very different ways. They have very different ideological underpinnings and values that they're presenting to the end user. But basically, we're very hands-on. We kind of come on as a campaign manager for projects that we like. It's very vetted. We reject most projects. So it's really a collaborative process where we help take something from whatever stage you happen to be in, whether it's idea or prototype or production, or you're just figuring out what even you want to build, to the launch and then subsequent sale of the product.
So just for people who aren't familiar with the Kickstarter way of things, let's contrast it with that. What services does Kickstarter provide you?
So Kickstarter is a great arts patronage platform. It's mostly focused on the arts, and their fundamental mechanism is crowdfunding, right? So it's an all or nothing model. They take a cut. We do something very similar, but in addition to just doing that transactional, monetary piece, we also warehouse your items. We ship them out to people. We handle customer service. We do marketing and help you craft what the strategy is for the go-to-market. We can connect you with manufacturers. We have a directory of people that we've worked with and to recommend to people. So it's really it's more of a full-service, high-touch business.
So that probably means there's a much higher barrier to entry. Like as you said, you reject most things. What are you looking for in projects then? What's a good ideal fit? It sounds like artisanal and an open hardware, but is that the main two criteria?
No, there's really three. One of them, as Aaron alluded to, we're about to soften, and that one was it has to be a physical product that is manufactured. And has to be sent to somebody. So when somebody places an order, they expect to receive something in the mail. We're looking into doing software right now and trying to find the right project for that. Our ideal fit is actually software and hardware together. I think that makes a lot of sense. I'll talk more about that later. But the second criterion is that you have to have a good plan for getting the funding that you're looking for. And that's really a marketing question, and of course will help determine if you have a good plan and point you in the right direction if you don't, or make suggestions. And then the third is, once you have the money, do you have a good plan for actually executing on your promises and delivering to your customers what they expect? And that's really the fundamental keystone of crowd supply, the delivery piece. So far, we've had 100% delivery rate of everything that's been funded. So that means everything that's been funded is either in the hands of the people who purchased it right now, or it's on track to be shipped out soon.
And I know that I mean, one of the complaints that I have, it's not a complaint really, but what happens a lot of times with Kickstarter especially is, people pledge and then they're like, okay, we're going to start working on this. And then,
right.
I've got a 3D printer that I signed up for, I think like a year and a half ago. It's a cool idea. It's a $100 3D printer. It's a resin-based printer. I was really excited about it at the time, and it's been a year and a half, and I still don't have it or know when I'm going to get it.
Yeah.
Are you guys trying to solve that problem at all? Guys, you just mentioned the delivery side. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's really the main problem that we tackled right out of the gate. And to do that, I mean, we're all engineers and product designers by trade or training, with a lot of e-commerce experience as well. And so we have a pretty good knack for looking at a project just really quickly and seeing, okay, does this have the right team? Is it physically possible? Are they using the right manufacturing processes? Is their timeline realistic? And so that doesn't take very long at all. And if the answer is no to any of those things, then we actually say, hey, here's what we think you should do instead. And we can help you make those connections.
Yeah. So you've got a number of projects under your belt already. How long have you been doing this?
We launched publicly in March 2013, so about 2.5 years. And we've launched, I think our 100th project is coming up soon.
Oh, wow. So you've been around a while. How did you get started?
Well, we were looking at a lot of our friends and peers doing product development. Some of them were going to Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and launching. And while that they could sometimes achieve the funding goals they were looking for, they were having more trouble actually delivering and making good on their promises. And so when Kickstarter came out very publicly saying Kickstarter is not a store, that was kind of the seminal blog post that launched Crowd Supply, frankly. And 6 months later, our first blog post was Crowd Supply is a store, and that's a kind of underlines the main difference, I think. So that's what got us started, and we really built the platform to be something that we would use. Now, of course, we've used it much less than we'd like because we're actually running it, but that's how it goes.
So is that, I mean, I know that Kickstarter essentially considers everything a donation. When you order something, it's a donation, not necessarily you're actually paying for something. You're donating to the project. Is that also, I'm assuming based on what you just said, that's a difference as well? You're not, Crowd Supply isn't actually a donation service. You're actually ordering something from the store, and I've got to pay sales tax and all that kind of stuff.
Well, so we're based in Oregon, so we don't have to pay sales tax, and we don't collect sales tax because everything is you're buying it from us and shipping it out. So we don't collect sales tax. If you're buying internationally, of course, you might have to pay duties or something. But the experience is very much like buying something online anywhere else, right? There's a very streamlined cart, add to cart or back this project. Check out, put your credit card information in, fill out which options you wanted. Is it red, small, and bouncy, or blue, large, and squishy. And then you get a confirmation email, and then a shipping email, and then you get it in the mail. That's the idea. So pretty much like any other streamlined e-commerce. Now that said, we do take a donation or support level. Just that's people give that because they just like the project and aren't expecting anything in return. But that's the very small minority of pledges that come through.
Right.
All that said, there is. This is an agreement between the backer and the customer. So the terms are essentially the same as everywhere else, but I think the expectations are higher.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned you guys focus more on the delivery. At least that's what kind of sets you apart. That's your differentiator, along with some of the other things you said. But I'm curious about the delivery component and how what expertise do you bring to the table? What's your background, essentially, that lets you be able to help in that area and actually get things in the hands of the people that ordered them quickly and efficiently?
A few things. One, like I said, we're all engineers of some sort and have been developing products. Some of us have been developing products. Others of us have been selling products as an e-commerce, with various e-commerce sites. I think between all of my co-founders, there are over a dozen e-commerce sites that are currently available. So we have the logistics experience and the fulfillment experience. We run our own warehouse. We have our own fulfillment and logistics software. We know all the problems that are going to arise or likely to arise when you, say, ship a PCBA to Germany. There's just a lot of details you need to take care of. Now, that said, I think while that is a very practical difference between us and everyone else, I think the bigger difference actually is in how we curate our projects and the kind of stamp of or certification that this is something that we really believe in and we don't think it's just going to end up as landfill. Whereas pretty much everywhere else, it's a free for all and looks more and more like Sky Mall every day, I think.
Yeah. Did you guys how in terms of funding, how did you get this thing off the ground? Is it paying for itself? I mean, is it kind of the model where hey, it's it pays for itself right away as soon as we get the first project in the door, or how did you actually get it off the ground?
We started with $500,000 in seed funding, and half of that was with a VC firm. So we haven't, to be clear, we have not crowdfunded our own company, nor do we intend to. And then we recently got another round of just under $1 million. But we've actually, in between, we've actually had some profitable quarters and months. But we made the decision that we needed to grow rather a little bit faster than we could organically. So that's why we took funding recently. But
go ahead.
The real business model though isn't taking that 5% of crowdfunding. I mean that's all well and good, but the real business model is everything that comes after. Right. So when we launch a project, it's getting the funding for those 30 days, say, of the campaign is really important step. Really, we're in it for the longer term. So we want to resell your product once it's been manufactured. We want to help you get it distributed. We want to launch your second and third and fourth products in the same line or different lines. So it's really more of a business relationship than in other places, I think.
Right. I know you talk a lot about the marketing and fulfillment and things. I'm just curious if you also have any way to help before the product launches. I know that one of my friends just had a successful Kickstarter recently, and one of the big things, we actually had him come talk about his Kickstarter experience because we got a lot of people that are curious about, hey, do I want to launch a product that way, and do I want to use crowdsourcing to do that? And one of the things he said that they struggled with a little bit is the upfront research before they even started the Kickstarter process. Like, who's my audience? Who's going to buy this? Who should I be targeting? Is there a market out there? I mean, is that something that you guys can help with as well?
Yeah, absolutely. But although I would say that fulfillment and marketing are actually important to consider well before your campaign launches as well.
Yeah.
But to your point, yeah, we'll give you very honest feedback. We don't get paid until you make money, and so it's in our best interest to just be brutally honest and say, hey, this is a horrible idea, or this could be a good idea if you did this and this, or you're targeting the wrong market, or your price point's too low, or whatever it is. So that can be a very quick conversation. If it's a longer conversation, then we can connect you with people who have experience with these sorts of things, and you can work with them and then come back to us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I want to find out, we've kind of covered the background and what it is and how it works and everything, but where does the open source part of this come in? I mean, we're on FLOSS, so I mean, how does where does the open source angle fit into this?
Well, I think that's just where our hearts lie as a company and individuals. I think we've all been involved in open source projects of one sort or another, either as contributors or founders or users. And I really think that the main vision behind Crowd Supply is helping realize those products that couldn't otherwise exist by combining crowdfunding and open source. So when you think about it, there's millions of consumer products out there. Most of them are created in roughly the same way, right? Some very large corporation picks it up, manufactures something which will appeal to the kind of the widest range of people, and then produces it in in kind of known ways in known factories. Crowdfunding and open source kind of the combination allows for a very different way to approach product development. So, for example, I don't think that any of the 3 laptops that we've funded so far would have existed in a traditional product development scenario. I don't think there would be VC funding for any of them. I don't think there would be, we wouldn't be able to bootstrap. And I really think that the creation of those products relied on open source, and then the funding, the design and creation of those products relied on open source, and then the funding and manufacturing of the products relied on crowdfunding. And those two value systems overlap enough that quite significantly that you can get a lot of people behind it at the same time. So I mean that's the real, I think, vision of Crowd Supply.
So let's talk about the projects. I noticed a couple of them were open hardware. At least they said they were open hardware.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at the security stick. What's it called? The
USB Armory.
Yeah, USB Armory, the security thing, and then the laptop. I mean, is that a requirement that these projects be open hardware? I mean, obviously with the artisanal stuff, that probably doesn't apply as much. But at least with the technology, is that a requirement, or do you guys maybe you just lean more towards those types of projects that you select?
So we don't have a hard and fast requirement. We're actually working on crafting something that our creators agree to, which I'd love to talk to when it comes out. But the real requirement is transparency, and that could mean a couple of different things. And this is why an artisanal handcrafted good makes sense alongside of a high-end laptop. You can still be transparent about your supply chain and materials and labor practices and delivery dates and the problems that you face in manufacturing, the designs, whether it's firmware, software, hardware, 3D modeling, layout, schematics, all of these things. There's many, many layers. I think many more layers than a typical software project has on which you can be transparent. And so we really push all of our creators to be as transparent as possible. And some projects, like you said, lend themselves more to kind of traditional opening than others. But I think they can all be open to some extent.
You keep talking about the transparency and about open source being at the heart of what you do. I'm just curious, is your website software all open source as well?
No.
Okay.
And I think that clearly free Libre open source software has a very important place in the world. We keep ours closed because we actually don't have the resources to manage it, manage a community. What is open source and free about it is we recently removed the need for JavaScript. So if you have a JavaScript locker, you're running Libre.js or NoScript, then you can still enjoy and experience most of the site. I think the exception is the playback of videos is currently requires JavaScript, but you can check out that you won't be impeded otherwise. So that was a big step for us, and that's how we got the Free Software Foundation endorsement a few months ago.
That's actually what I was going to lead into next. Could you describe more about that?
Yeah, this came about in a pretty natural way. As soon as we started hosting quote unquote open hardware projects, we started receiving a lot of user feedback about not wanting to use JavaScript. And eventually we kind of started speaking with Richard Stallman and the FSF, John Sullivan, and their stance, which I agree with, is that JavaScript, even though it's being served by a server, a web server, it's being run on the user's computer. And so if you are a free and Libre open source advocate and only want to use free Libre software, then you would need to block anything that you couldn't verify. You blocked any JavaScript that you couldn't verify was free in Libre. So with that as the context, we made this change and kind of relaunched the site completely without that requirement. And sure enough, we stopped getting any complaints about it.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I know that more and more sites are using even fancier and fancier JavaScript sites that are building up using Angular and Polymer and those sorts of things. And so I do sort of applaud the extra skill that it must have taken. I'm also curious, what's your backing software for that? What's your technologies for your website?
So we use, it's built on Nginx with micro, WSGI, Pyramid, and a custom Python/Pyramid application is our web application. I believe we use MySQL and Elasticsearch, Redis. It's a pretty basic stack, but mostly custom. Yeah, and it's all.
Sorry, go ahead.
And and standard configuration management tools.
Very cool. One of the things I was curious about is your relationship with, say, let's take one of the laptop projects, probably the most recent one, I guess, for being the coolest, I guess, of the three. What's your ongoing relationship with the people who are doing the development? Are you checking in every 30 days with them, or weekly phone calls or quarterly email? How are you trying to help these essentially R&D groups that you're helping to bring infrastructure support for? Ensure that they're going to fulfill their deadlines and product.
It really depends on the stage that they're at. There are some sections of time where I'm talking to them every single day, talking about different strategy or how can we get in front of this type of user or talk to this journalist or whatever it is, or purely financial, like accounting matters. And then there are other portions, like once things are running smoothly, where it'll go a month or two or three where we're each going down the same track and we don't really need to talk to each other. So it really depends. Because we resell the products afterward, we'll buy inventory or sell on consignment or drop ship or whatnot. We are in pretty regular communication. And like I said, the campaign is really just the first step. And so planning future product lines, making sure there's enough inventory to go around, all of these things are kind of daily conversations with one creator or another.
And so maybe one way to look at this, and I came up with this a few minutes ago, is it's more like it's an umbrella company with lots of research and development groups that operate independently.
You could think of it that way. Yeah, I mean, I think it rubs up against, or at least reminds people of certain incubators or accelerators.
Okay.
We don't take an equity stake at all. It's really purely just a revenue share.
Okay. So one of the things I was also looking at is, and the reason I asked this question about how closely you're say in touch with the laptop thing is that part of that development of the open hardware and open software that were required to do that required them reaching out that as a team and connecting with other people. And I'm wondering how involved you get with that. I mean, are you also publicizing that this project is going on and needs people who do maybe USB design or something?
Yeah. If you're referring to the Librem, Librem 13, they've really done a great job of reaching out to the community and kind of gathering support, even in the face of some adversity, I think. And they've recruited successfully, some very skilled developers on all levels of the technology stack to really help them. And in fact, the first Librem campaign, the Librem 15, which was launched late last year and finished earlier this year, went through this dramatic transformation from a laptop which most people thought was okay and kind of ho-hum to something that people really wanted. And that transformation involved basically redesigning everything inside of the case. So the case remained the same, but the entire motherboard was a completely different reference design by the end of it. The specs were all bumped significantly, and that's what got the community behind it. And a lot of those technical hurdles were solved by people just saying, "Hey, go look at this data sheet. It has what you need. You thought it was impossible, but it's actually you can actually do it with what you have."
Wow.
And so that was a really, really informative campaign, and I think exemplifies how that combination of crowdfunding and open source creates products in a completely different way and products that couldn't exist otherwise.
Well, I know Aaron's got a couple more questions almost immediately here, but I have to pay the bills, so let me go ahead and take care of that. Because whether you're an experienced code warrior or just getting started, you need flexible, reliable, and affordable hosting. DigitalOcean provides developers with Droplets, which are virtual private servers that can be customized and deployed quickly to host websites, web apps, production applications, personal projects, virtual desktops, and almost anything else you can think of with full root access. I myself am a DigitalOcean customer. I found out about them in February, and they run FreeBSD, which I love. So I have servers running immediately as we speak. Very cool. Because DigitalOcean is built for developers and used by over 400,000 of them, including me, as I just said. And you can choose your OS: Ubuntu, CentOS, Debian, Fedora, CoreOS, and FreeBSD. And a one-click install allows you to quickly deploy apps like Django, Docker, Drupal, LAMP, GitLab, MediaWiki, Node.js, WordPress, Ghost, Magento, OwnCloud, Ruby on Rails, and more. And all the servers are built on hex-core machines with dedicated ECC RAM and RAID SSD storage. And those servers can have up to 20 CPUs, 64 gigs of RAM, and 640 gigs of SSD hard drive space. Yeah, the speed of the disk is really fast. A full-feature DNS management to easily manage your domains or use dedicated IPs, web console access with HTML5, or you can get SSH, SFTP, and KVM VNC for virtual desktops. An extremely active community as well, with a large and detailed set of tutorials on all the ways you can use your Droplet. Want to deploy Docker? Set up a mail server? They've got you covered. And it's so easy to get started. You can deploy an SSD cloud server in as little as 55 seconds. DigitalOcean has incredibly affordable and straightforward pricing. Servers start at only $5 per month. There's also hourly pricing available starting at less than a penny per hour. But we're going to make it so you can get started today and deploy an SSD cloud server for free. Visit DigitalOcean.com and create an account. Once you confirm your email and account information, go to the billing section and enter the promo code FLOSS for a free $10 credit. That's plenty to get started and explore what DigitalOcean can do. That's DigitalOcean.com. And once you sign up, enter the code FLOSS in the billing section for a $10 credit. We thank DigitalOcean for their sponsorship of Floss Weekly. Okay, and Aaron, you had a question?
I've got a number of them, but I was just looking through some of the projects, and I encourage people to go take a look at some of these things that are up and available. The one that I came across is Type 50 dual linear display watch, which is really cool looking. I mean, for programmers, if you're a programmer, and I mean you'll recognize the logic on the watch. It's really, really cool, and it's aesthetically a very well designed watch, at least from what it looks like. They did a really good job with this. So there's some really cool stuff. It actually sets itself based on you put it on top of your smartphone. and then you I guess there's an app or something that goes on the smartphone and it blinks, and then it sets the watch that way. I mean, it's just some really interesting things. Like there's that. I saw a USB condom, which is really interesting, which is like a security device. It plugs into your you plug the USB port into this, and then plug this device into your computer to make sure that people aren't hijacking your phone or doing something strange through your USB port, which is really cool. A lot of keyboards, a lot of different little circuit boards and projects for makers, which is really, really cool. So it's just interesting the types of projects that you see here. I'm definitely going to be checking this out more. I'm wondering, like, for me, I hear about Indiegogo and Kickstarter a lot more. So I'm kind of curious, what are you doing to try to get this out in front of more people? Do you think it'll just grow organically on its own, or what are you doing to kind of hype this up a little bit and get it more to the level of Kickstarter and Indiegogo?
Well, I don't think we aspire to be a Kickstarter or Indiegogo. First of all, I think that Kickstarter recently opened up the gates and allowed for anyone to launch a project without any sort of human intervention. It's just you go to the website, fill out a form, and you have a launched project. I don't think that we're aiming for that at all. I think that reduces the quality of the projects, kind of reduces the chance that it'll succeed and deliver. But I think more to your point, there's a misperception that there's just this crowd waiting for you. Right, it's called crowdfunding after all, right? When in fact there's not. Even regardless of where you launch, whether it's Crowd Supply or Indiegogo or Kickstarter or anywhere else, on your own site, for example, the marketing side is still done the old-fashioned way. And yes, Indiegogo and Kickstarter have many more site sessions per month than we do, but they have many, many more projects as well. And so I think per project we actually do much better than either Indiegogo or Kickstarter. And you can see that in our success rates and our funding, average funding. The success rate is well over 50%, which is, I think, over twice of comparable products on Kickstarter. And then the average funding of successful projects is, again, over twice that for comparable products on Kickstarter, and similarly for Indiegogo. So the real thing you need to understand when you launch a campaign is that it's not launch or fire and forget. It's really, there's a lot of work that goes into developing that community, developing your message, getting it in front of the right people, and executing. That's traditional PR in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so you're going more for quality over quantity then.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it is, but in some ways, it is a little bit about eyeballs, I think. I mean, getting people to know about it. I mean, the fact that I'm such a big, I wouldn't say I'm huge, but I've backed a number of projects on Kickstarter and some on Indiegogo, and yet I haven't really ever browsed through Crowd Supply. I think could be an issue, right? I mean, it's something that.
Well, how do you typically find out about a project that you back?
Ah, you're turning this around on me now, huh?
I've had this conversation before.
No, this is good. Usually it's through social media, actually. I'll hear about it on Reddit. I'll see it on Google+. A friend will say, hey, did you hear about this? Or you should go here and check this out on a forum or something. And that's generally how I find out about it. I definitely don't find out through traditional media sources.
Right. Well, and more to the point, you don't find out about it because you're just browsing and looking on a platform, right? Typically. And the same is true with us. Most of our visitors, they come because they heard about it on Reddit or read a Wired magazine article or Engadget or wherever it's placed, or from their friends, social media, and then they come to the site, they back that campaign, and then they leave. Right, and maybe they'll come back later. And in fact, we have a pretty high multiple project backer rate. But traditional. When I say traditional PR, I actually mean what you're talking about. Right, that's traditional. Social media, word of mouth, getting it placed in journals. All of that is what we help with. And if you look at any of the campaigns that have been successful on crowd supply, chances are they were successful because of where they reached out to and who was talking about them.
Right. And that goes back to a lot of the market research, right? I mean, knowing who your audience is. Do I place this in Make Magazine, for example, versus People Magazine? It makes a lot of difference. And it sounds like you do. So you also help with traditional media placement as well as part of the marketing effort, if that's the right fit for that particular product. It's not just the social media aspect of it.
That's right. Yeah, and I think that a traditional PR person, and I'm not a marketing or PR person at all, so I kind of learned this in doing crowd supply, but it's really about being able to take the story that you think you're telling and then retell it to the right people at the right time in the right place, and making sure that those people then talk about it in a really interesting way. So, knowing who to talk to at any of these media outlets that you want to be seen in, the Wall Street Journal or Gizmodo or Slashdot or whatever, that matters. And so we have a stable of trusted PR agents that we can work with on select projects to realize that the potential of the product to get exposure. Now, there's certain products that people just aren't going to want to talk about because they're just not interesting enough, and we'll be blunt about that as well.
So would stenography be one of those topics that people don't want to talk about? I noticed this thing called Stenosaurus or something like that. What in the world is that?
So that's actually my project. Yeah, this is something I've been working on. This is one of the projects I had in mind to launch when I first started Crowd Supply. It's like, I'll launch the Stenosaurus on there. So I think a lot of people want to talk about this. You mentioned there's a resurgence in keyboard technology lately. Mm-hmm. We're launching a few of them soon. The Stenosaurus is a stenotype machine, and this is really another interesting takeaway for crowdfunding. You'd think that the more people that are interested in the product, the better it will do, but in fact, it's almost the opposite, right? It's not that. An example is we launched a household kitchen utensil that anybody with a kitchen could use, and it did horribly because it just wasn't interesting enough. Whereas the Stenosaurus and stenography, that is such a niche market, and people are so interested in it. It's a relatively small number of people, but they're the hardcore first users, and that's who you want to attract for your product. They'll be your advocates. That's the point of crowdfunding, I think, is market validation in that advocate, early adopter sphere. But to your question, what is Stenosaurus? It's a steno writer. You can use it to write 225 words or more a minute. That's the professional level. It reduces the barriers from about $50,000 to get started to about $300.
Wow, really? $50,000 for those court reporter stenographer machines?
Well, the machine itself is usually several $1,000s. Let's say 4 or 5. You can get it as low as $1, I think, if you're a student. The software to run them is another, several $1,000s. And then the real punch in the gut comes from how to learn. You have to go to school. It's a professional vocational school. These schools have a 90% dropout rate. There's only one criterion of whether you graduate or not, and that's, can you write it 225 words a minute or faster with high accuracy. So we've opened up all of those overcome all of those barriers, the hardware, the software, and the education part of it, in a free Libre fashion.
That is pretty cool. I was talking to a friend of mine at the Makerspace the other day, and they were saying, we're talking about the differences between QWERTY and Dvorak keyboards, and kind of getting into that whole thing about how you lay out and I'm sure you know a lot more about this than I did, but we were just kind of talking about some of the interesting ways that why keyboards were developed in the way that they were, and I'm sure we could almost probably do a whole show. We'll have you back on. We'll talk about how why keyboards were laid out the way they were, what the alternatives are, and all that. This sounds like a good alternative.
Yeah, I would say that
Cool.
if you're going to learn Dvorak, the time and energy and expense that you're going to put into that is approximately the same as what you would do to get up to speed with stenography with the Stenosaurus. And the ceiling, your Dvorak speed, you can maybe get 10 or 20% faster than QWERTY, but Stenosaurus you're looking at hundreds of percent faster.
Yeah. Could you actually program with it if I wanted to do programming, or is it just for spoken words? In other words, is there full ASCII support? Is all the characters there? Could I do everything I could do with the normal keyboard?
Yeah. Originally, stenography was developed for spoken word transcription. So in courtrooms, in classrooms, depositions, that sort of thing. But you could use it for generic writing, and really that's what I'm shooting for, right? I'm not shooting for professional stenographers. I'm shooting for people like you and me who spend, I'm guessing, most of the day in front of a computer typing. And while speed isn't the thing that's holding us back, I think the fluency that you would get from going instantly almost from thought to transcribed English is really powerful. And that's powerful whether you're an educator or a student or a coder. And if you're coding, what you're writing is very different looking, but you can think of stenography as the ultimate macro language, right? It kind of replaces the macros of your IDE, right? It doesn't do code lookup and stuff, but it can certainly do all the boilerplate for classes or methods or anything like that. It can automatically format camel case or underscore separated. All of that is what I'm shooting for with the Stenosaurus.
Just think of how fast you could text your friends. Maybe I should show this to my 16-year-old son. Look how many more text messages you could send with this. It's just crazy. He might like it. I don't know. We should get a question in from. We like to take questions from chat, and we have one from Esol, a regular listener, of course. And he says, "Are you seeing the numbers of open source, open hardware that you wanted to achieve when you started Crowd Supply?"
Well, there's a couple.
I guess he means the open software and open hardware projects. The number of projects.
Yeah, so there's a couple numbers we could talk about. One is revenue, which absolutely it's our strongest revenue source by a large margin. Then there's the number of backers, which again, same thing, and number of projects. Yes, also, when we launched, of course, we were nobody knew about us. We were asking people to launch and working with them, and working really hard for every campaign that we launched. And today, it's a much more organic process. Our best projects are the ones that come to us. And of course, we still go out and recruit projects that we find interesting. But sometimes the most interesting things just come through the door now. So I'm very happy with that, and I think that's a trend that will continue.
Now, speaking along that lines, how you can't actually then really develop a roadmap of what you think Crowd Supply is going to be doing in 3 years from now, or can you? What parts of it can you control and actually map out, as opposed to just having to be psychic and figure out what projects are going to come your way?
Well, I think we can control what kinds of projects come our way, not the specific projects, of course. And even then, sometimes we can. If we go out and talk to a group that we really want to see, they're a higher likelihood of launching with us. But we can formulate the process of launching to select for those projects that we think are the best fit. And so, we're very much doing that. And I think in 3 or 5 or 10 years or whatever it is, I'm hoping that the word crowdfunding kind of goes away, and this is just how you develop products now. And I'm hoping that the notion that a product is open source is no longer a novelty, but instead the preferred method. And I think that given world events, that it's going in that direction. I think people are becoming more aware of the value.
Well, right now, a lot of the bigger projects are VC-based. Where do you see the cutoff between doing something using something like Crowd Supply versus doing something where you first go and make a presentation to VCs?
Well, I think of Crowd Supply as the ultimate lean manufacturing tool. Okay. This is something where rather than putting together a 3-year plan that's potentially hundreds of pages long, and I've seen those plans. People have presented them as their projects to us, and it requires VC backing. And your first action items are to hire this VP of that, or the lead architect of this portion of the product. Instead of doing that, just find out first if what you're trying to make is what people want, and so you can do that in a month or two, really, with crowdfunding. Sometimes it takes longer, of course, depending on what kind of prototype you need. But the idea is to launch quickly and often, iterate based on what you learn, and repeat, and find out what grow from there. And next step might be VC, but that wouldn't be the first step for projects that launch with us.
Okay, and one thing I'm now curious about, what's the range of size of the various project teams?
Oh boy, we've had individuals, pairs, small groups, all the way up to full companies that have been around for years launch with us. So I think in terms of the maximum number of people that have worked on a project, I'm not sure. I probably don't even know because I'm not familiar with their manufacturing or whatnot, but I'm guessing a couple dozen.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. Sounds good. It sounds like if a 1 or 2 man shop comes up with something interesting, that is something he or she could potentially propose to you.
Yeah, and that's I think that's our preferred creator in a lot of ways. People who are just getting started and are, as long as you're passionate about the project, then that's one red flag down.
You could be generating the future Apple, 2 guys in a garage, right?
Yep, that's right. And in fact, that was one of the inspirations for the Novena laptop that Bunny did. I mean, he grew up and had the original, I think it was the Apple II, and it came with schematics, and you could take it apart and mess with it. And he wanted to recreate that, and that's what he did with the Novena.
Nice. Well, we're almost out of time. Is there anything we haven't asked that you want to make sure our audience is aware of?
I would ask everyone. A lot of you probably have projects that you're thinking about launching. If you don't, you almost certainly know somebody who does, and we'd love to talk to you, regardless of what it is, and you'll definitely walk away with something you didn't have when you started talking to us.
Awesome. Well, this has been very fascinating. There's a lot of different moving parts here, a lot more to it than what I thought when I first was looking at the project. So thank you for. Oh wait, nope. I'm going to get yelled at. You're a technology guy, so I can ask you these 2 questions. What's your favorite text editor?
Oh, I'm an Emacs guy.
Yay!
And when it's not Emacs, then I use Nano, and I love making people cringe with Nano.
That's fine. At least I finally got a win on the Emacs column. All these Vim users are all taking over the world.
It's surprising. I think it's a West Coast thing.
I think it's you're probably not much younger than me, if not even contemporary with me. So I think it's also a timing thing.
Yeah, that might be true.
Okay. And I'm probably going to miss it on this one. But what's your favorite programming language?
Python.
See, I knew that. I knew I'd only get one of the 2 of these.
Yeah, sorry.
At least I'm happier. At least I got an Emacs guy. That was great. Yeah. That's great. Well, Josh, it's been great chatting with you, and thank you for coming on and talking to us about crowd supply.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thanks for your time, and great talking to you.
And maybe sometime when I get back up to Portland, we can have lunch or something.
Yeah.
Awesome. I have your contact info.
Yep. Right. Thanks. I look forward to seeing you. Take care.
That was Josh. Yeah. Thank you. That was Josh Lifton talking to us about crowd supply. What do you think, Aaron?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, if you look at, I would encourage again the audience to go out and look at some of these projects because they are pretty interesting, and it is a little bit for me and what I like to do with the open hardware, as I'm sitting here playing with this little board, it's easier for me to go browse this and find projects that that I think are interesting. There's also some kitschy ones. I mean, I think I put this in the chat about the Speakeasy underwear. There's it has a little pouch you can hide things in. It's just, I mean, it's kind of interesting, right? To me, it would be more interesting to browse this than it is to browse Kickstarter or Indiegogo right now. As much as that might be hard for people to believe, but I mean, it's all just really cool projects that you can either incorporate into something that you're working on, or something fun to impress your friends or something, and say, oh, look at this solves a very distinct problem, but it's a problem I have. And you can go find that on here. So I like the fact that it's curated a little bit more, although I worry a little bit that I mean, that's the whole reason that, I don't use Slashdot and haven't for like 5 years, is because it was over curated. So I hope they don't rotate too much in that direction. But yeah, I mean, it is cool. It is really cool. I think it's a good alternative and something that people should check out.
Well, yeah, I especially like that it's not just the end to end, or it's not just getting the fending done, because that's
right.
An idiot can make a 3-minute videotape and. Ooh, I'm dating myself again. Who uses videotape anymore? Can make a movie, can make a thing that's on the browser thing, yeah, and try to do a run. I mean, there has been some very ridiculous Kickstarter things as well, sort of to capitalize on the popularity of it. But to actually see something, a system in place, so that you have a much greater chance of fulfillment from beginning to end, because they're vetted. And it sounds like Josh and his team have something to offer, even if they don't end up doing something for you, because they're going to say, well, we're going to reject you because of this. And if you're going to go even like to a VC or somebody, that's probably going to have to be one of the things that have to be fixed anyway. So,
right.
Sounds like free consulting. What a deal. You got an idea? Go talk to Josh. Well, that'll be great. Right. It should be like Better Call Josh. Better Call Saul. Right. Okay. Anyway, never mind.
Yeah, right.
Mixing my metaphors here, going crazy. And anything more before we move on?
No, I totally agree. I think that's a great point. And if you look at their cost model, I mean, it's going to cost you a lot more to go out and hire a marketing firm, probably, to go do this stuff for you, than it is to rely on. And they have enough projects under their belt. Like, they've been doing this for a couple of years now. You can see some of the successful projects. It's not like they don't know what they're talking about. Right. So, it's not like you're taking a huge risk either. It's like they've been very successful, it sounds like. And so, you can rest assured that they'll guide you in the right direction.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of projects under your belt, we have some projects coming up. Just coming up next week is Prometheus, which is a monitoring and time series database to do basically monitoring your stuff, like we had Isinga on a couple weeks ago, that sort of thing, but also have a better access to the historical data in real interesting queries and stuff like that. OPN Sense, which is a FreeBSD based firewall. It's a fork of pfSense, which we had on the show, my goodness, I think it was about 6 years ago now, which in turn was a fork of MonoWall. So we haven't had MonoWall on yet, but we're going to do OPN Sense coming up. We have a gap of a couple weeks just before OPN Sense. I've sent out maybe 15 emails in the last 5 days trying to fill in some of this. So I'm hoping to fill it in before we get there. Otherwise, it's going to be like you and me chatting about things open source or something like that. We'll have to figure something out. Boy, wouldn't that be an exciting show? We could do joking like we do at the beginning of every show. Anyway, so hopefully we'll come back. Dart, the Dart project leader, one of the Dart project leaders, Casper Lund, is coming on, and he'll bring some worthy co-guest. I don't know who it'll be yet, but we have a couple pieces in mind. Just added to the schedule, speaking of that, because I did send out a flurry of emails, we have Caddy, which is a high-performance web server written in Go. And for all you Go freaks out there, this looks like it's a pretty interesting project, because basically once you compile it for an architecture, it comes along standalone. So there's no libraries to install or anything, and then you have a high-performance HTTP 2.0 compliant web server. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Lots of open slots still. If you go to twit.tv/floss, the homepage for the show, you'll find the link to our big Google spreadsheet, which talks about my progress in getting all those filled. If you have a project that is not on that list, please email the project coordinator or the community coordinator for the project, or project leader, however you think would be easiest to represent, and have them email me. This is the best way to do that. If you want me to email people, I'll never get to it. I don't have enough time to do that. So please start the interest by talking to the project themselves, see if they want to be on the show. All right, and my email. And
Randall,
address,
what day? Sorry, what day are all these shows going to be on?
That's about 2 more bullets down. I've got a script. I've got a script, man.
I didn't want to forget to talk about it.
This is not my first show. All right. Thanks, Aaron. So, again, go to the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet also notes that we are moving from Wednesdays, like this show, to Tuesdays coming up in a couple weeks. So,
there we go.
We're not only the earliest show during the day on the FLOSS network. The FLOSS network, we're taking over. We're on the Twit network, but we are also now moving to earlier in the week. So that's going to be fun. But I think we'll be less conflicted with other product announcements, stuff like that. Yes, so we do take questions from the chat room. The chat room is at 8 a.m. Pacific time Wednesdays until it becomes Tuesdays, live.twit.tv. You can follow us on Floss Weekly on Google Plus and at Floss Weekly on Twitter. I did seem to get the Google Plus RSS feeder working, and by doing that, my messages posted to both my personal Google Plus and the official Floss Weekly Google Plus do end up on the corresponding Twitter feeds. Unfortunately, the free version of it is a 2-hour delay. So I post something and about 2 hours later. So you won't be getting notices anymore like I used to do, where I'd say coming up in an hour, because it'll never hit Twitter in time. So it'll just be, I tried that, didn't work. Anyway, but at least I've got that working now. Thank you for everybody who tried to help me out to get that to work. But it turned out Google Plus RSS was in fact the easiest way to do that. So you can follow me at Merlin, speaking of that, M-E-R-L-Y on Twitter. But my original source material is always on Google Plus at Randall L. Schwartz there. And then I have a Facebook link that pops out from that and a Google Plus link that pops out from that. A Twitter link that pops out from that. I guess my caffeine is either finally kicking in or finally running out. I have nothing to plug right now. Kind of winding down the end of the year. Not many conferences I'm going to or anything. Well, actually, 0 conferences I'm going to. We've got, I think my first conference is coming up in February or March is Scale. So other than that, I'm not being anywhere particular. So any plugs you want to make there, Aaron?
Sure. Yeah. The reason I wanted to make sure we got the thing out about the day was because when I woke up this morning, I was like, oh, wait, was the show yesterday?
Yeah.
I knew the daytime was coming, the day change was coming up. And I was like, wait, did I completely miss it? I didn't get any emails from Randall, so I must be okay. But yeah, it was kind of like, I couldn't figure it out. And I was like, no, it's the 30th. We're okay.
You didn't get the run 2 days ago?
I did get the rundown, but of course I didn't look at I'm so used to getting them. I don't pay attention to the date. I know it's on Wednesday, right? Well,
actually,
except for now, I'm not sure.
I said in big square brackets, no, this is still Wednesday.
Oh, you did? Oh, see, I didn't even see that.
You didn't read it.
No, I didn't. I don't read the top part. I just go there and look at the questions.
Okay.
Yeah, but that was. So I just wanted to make sure we covered that. Yeah, I do have a couple things to plug. If you are, watch Twit all day. If you're one of those people, or if you just like watching This Week in Google, I'll be a co-host on This Week in Google, coming up later today at 1 o'clock or thereabouts Pacific time. If you want to watch live, or of course you can download it later. So if you like This Week in Google, I'll be hosting there. And of course, you can always find me doing something interesting at Benicia Makerspace. If you're in Northern California, around the Contra Costa, Solano County area, and you want to come check out what we're doing, we always have cool and interesting projects going on. You can find out all about that at BeniciaMakerspace.org.
Very cool, very cool. Well, you won't be seeing this background behind me, even though that lovely little cloud out there. So we're starting to do a little bit of cloud service there. You won't be seeing that next week because I'll be coming to you from my apartment up in Beaverton, Oregon, near Portland, Oregon. So then we'll only have to worry about the leaf blowers when they get to come by. So hopefully that won't happen too well. But thank you again, Aaron, especially for stepping up for this show, which is really sort of up your alley. So thank you.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like I said, I'm always buying stuff, and I'm trying to figure out what Kickstarter project I should bring to This Week in Google to show off later today. So it'll be a mystery.
Very good, very good. Well, like I tell people every day at this time, every end of show at this time, I better get out of here soon. We'll see you all again next week on Floss Weekly.